All right, let's dive into this one. Morals and Dogma by Albert Pike. It's a classic for a reason, lays out so much Masonic philosophy, but I'll be honest, it's a bit of a beast of a book.
Yeah, dense is one way to put it.
But don't worry, we're here to help you make sense of it all.
We'll extract the good stuff, the key insights.
Exactly. And some of those insights are pretty wild. We're talking about the connection between Masonry and these ancient mystery traditions, the role of symbols, and even Pike's perspective on how to be a good person, how to live a virtuous life in a world that, let's be honest, isn't always so virtuous. And lucky for us, we've got our expert here who's kind of a pro at deciphering complex philosophical stuff.
Well, pro might be a stretch, but I do enjoy a good philosophical puzzle.
That's what this book is, a puzzle.
Yeah, a puzzle with some real gems hidden inside.
Right. And one of the things that Pike really hammers home is this idea of, he calls them the eternal duties of Masonry. And those are, things like opposing tyranny, fighting corruption, standing up for what's right, for justice.
The big stuff.
The big stuff. He's serious about it. He even says, and this is a direct quote, Masonry, like history and philosophy, has eternal duties. To oppose Caiaphas as bishop, Draco or Jeffreys as judge, Trimalcion as legislator, and Tiberius as emperor.
Wow.
These are the symbols of the tyranny that degrades and crushes, and the corruption that defiles and infests.
Okay,
That's
that's pretty
Freemasonry.
intense. It is. But it's powerful too, right?
No, absolutely.
Like he's connecting these huge societal problems to the individual Mason's responsibility. It's not just about, having the right thoughts.
It's about doing something.
It's about action.
So what does that mean for, our listener, the person listening right now?
Well, I think it can they do.
It can mean a lot of things.
Yeah.
Speaking out against discrimination, volunteering in their community,
Right.
even just, being kind to their neighbor.
It's about actually doing something.
It's about putting those principles into practice.
Okay, so action. Got it. And, this ties directly into the core principles of Masonry. Brotherly love, relief, and truth.
Yeah.
But Pike doesn't just, repeat the usual interpretations of those.
He puts his own spin on it.
He gives them his own unique spin.
Okay, I'm curious. What does he say? How does he interpret those?
Well, let's take truth, for example.
Okay.
For Pike, seeking truth is this constant quest.
Not a destination.
It's not about having all the answers. It's about constantly striving to learn and to grow.
Always learning. Yeah.
Always questioning. He even writes that truth is a divine attribute and the foundation of every virtue.
Wow, that's deep.
Right. So it's not just about knowing facts. It's about aligning your life with that truth.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
And it makes me think about how he talks about the 4 cardinal virtues.
Temperance, fortitude, prudence, justice.
Those ones, yeah.
Yes.
He applies those to both individuals and to nations, which I thought was interesting.
Right, like what's good for the individual should also be good for society as a whole. And his historical examples are so vivid. Do you remember that analogy about Rome?
Oh, yeah, yeah.
He encourages nations to be resilient.
They'd be tough.
Like Rome when she sold the field at which Hannibal had his camp, even in defeat.
Even when you're down, don't give up.
Our strength there.
Oh, that's good. And, another thing that really jumped out at me is Pike's claim that Masonry inherited this tradition of teaching through symbols and ceremonies.
Oh, yeah. The mysteries.
The mysteries from these ancient mystery schools.
Fascinating stuff.
He writes, Masonry, successor of the mysteries, still follows the ancient manner of teaching. Her ceremonies are like the ancient mystic shows, not the reading of an essay, but the opening of a problem, requiring research and constituting philosophy, the arch-expounder. That's a mouthful.
It is. He liked his words.
So can you break down for us, what exactly were these mysteries?
Well, imagine these ancient schools dedicated to exploring these big questions.
The big ones, yeah.
Like life and death and the nature of the universe.
Really deep stuff.
But they didn't just, give out this knowledge to anyone.
It wasn't just an open book.
No. They used symbols, rituals, dramatic performances, even
To keep it hidden.
to convey these ideas, but only to those who were initiated.
It's like a secret society.
Well, it wasn't about being exclusive for the sake of it.
Okay.
The idea was to safeguard this wisdom, make sure it was passed on to those who were ready.
Those who could handle it.
Exactly.
That makes sense. I mean, some knowledge can be dangerous, right?
Right. Take someone like Cicero, who was a Roman orator and philosopher.
Oh, yeah, I've heard of him.
He believed the mysteries taught you how to live a good life, and Eve faced death with courage.
That's pretty relevant, even today.
Absolutely.
And it seems like Pike is kind of challenging Masons to do the same, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Not to just, sit there and listen,
Yeah.
but to actually engage with the symbols, try to uncover the meaning.
Become active seekers.
Speaking of which, do any symbols from the book really resonate with you? Like stand out?
Oh,
Yeah.
there are a lot. But the serpent, I think, is particularly fascinating.
The serpent. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it's this incredibly complex symbol. Represents both healing and poison, wisdom and temptation.
Ooh, that's interesting.
Yeah. For me, it highlights the dual nature of knowledge itself.
How so?
How it can be used for good or for ill.
That's a great point. It's like that old saying, knowledge is power. But power can be used in different ways.
And that leads us perfectly into Pike's views on morality and dogma.
Okay, yeah.
He's not afraid to admit that, even Masons, they're not perfect.
Nobody's perfect.
There's this line that really struck me.
What is it?
Masonry does not change human nature and cannot make honest men out of born knaves.
Oh, he's calling people out.
It's a reality check.
Yeah, sure.
He's acknowledging that we all have our flaws.
Even those who strive to be good.
Even those who strive to be good.
Back again, digging deeper into Albert Pike and morals and dogma.
Yeah, still lots to unpack.
My brain's definitely feeling full, but in a good way.
That's the goal, right?
It is. But before the break, we were talking about the Kabbalah.
Right, those mystical Jewish traditions.
And you mentioned the Sephiroth, those qualities of the divine.
10 of them, representing different aspects.
But Pike doesn't stop there, does he? He starts talking about the symbolism of specific numbers. And I gotta be honest, I'm a little lost. What's so mystical about numbers?
Well, think about it. To the ancients, numbers weren't just for counting.
It wasn't just math class.
They represented these cosmic principles, divine attributes, like the building blocks of creation itself.
So there's a deeper meaning hidden within the numbers.
Exactly. It's like a secret code.
A code, huh? Interesting.
Each number holds a deeper significance.
Okay, so give me an example. Like, what about the number 3?
3. Oh, that's a big one.
It does seem to pop up a lot.
It does. The Christian Trinity, for example.
Father, Son, Holy Spirit.
3 primary deities in ancient Egyptian mythology.
And what about in Masonry?
Oh, it's everywhere.
Is it?
The 3 degrees, the 3 pillars of the lodge, 3 principal officers.
Oh, I see. So it's about recognizing these recurring numbers and trying to understand what they mean.
That's the key. Pike digs into quite a few of them.
Does he? Any that really stand out?
Well, he talks about the number 4 representing this generative power, the 4 elements.
Earth, air, fire, water.
Exactly. The 4 cardinal virtues.
Oh, yeah, we talked about those earlier. Temperance, fortitude, all that.
Right. So 4 is about wholeness, stability, the very foundation of creation.
Okay, that makes sense.
Well,
What about 6? Didn't he mention 6?
6, yes. He describes it as the emblem of nature, representing the 6 dimensions of all physical bodies.
6 dimensions. Ooh, that's getting a little trippy.
A little bit. But the point is, 6 is associated with the material world, the physical realm we experience.
Interesting. So these simple numbers actually hold so much depth.
They do. It's like these cultures were trying to find meaning in everything.
Trying to decode the universe.
And Pike is encouraging us to do the same, to look at the world through this symbolic lens.
To see the connections, the patterns.
Exactly. To recognize that everything is interconnected.
Okay, so we've got numbers as symbols. Got it. But let's shift gears a bit. Talk about Pike's ideas on the individual's role in the world. Earlier, he was pretty clear about not judging others. Does he expand on that at all?
Oh, he does. He does.
What does he say?
Well, he makes the point that we shouldn't just assume that everyone who acts hypocritically is intentionally being deceitful.
Yeah, that's a good point.
People are complex.
They are.
And their actions don't always perfectly reflect their beliefs.
So there could be more to the story.
Always more to the story.
He's not saying hypocrisy is okay.
No, not at all. But he is saying there might be other factors at play.
That we might not be aware of.
Right. And he suggests that this disconnect between, what people say they believe and how they actually act, it's not just a personal problem.
It's bigger than that.
It shows up in political parties, even religious institutions.
Oh, yeah, I've definitely seen that.
He even has this line, "A gospel of love in the mouth is an avatar of persecution in the heart."
Ooh, that's a tough one.
It is, isn't it? But it highlights this potential for hypocrisy that exists within all of us.
We all have that capacity, yeah.
It's a call for self-reflection, I think.
To really look at
To
ourselves.
examine our own motivations, to strive for authenticity.
To walk the walk, not just talk the talk.
Exactly. And this ties back into what we were talking about before with tolerance and understanding.
Right.
Recognizing that even those with seemingly noble beliefs can fall short.
Nobody's perfect.
It makes us less likely to judge harshly.
More forgiving, more compassionate.
More compassionate, exactly.
It's about remembering our shared humanity.
Our common fallibility.
We're all in this together, basically.
We are. And Pike also dives into this idea of truth.
Oh, yeah, truth.
And how it's perceived.
How we see it, yeah.
He points out that truth can be subjective.
Subjective meaning.
What's true for one person might not be true for another.
That's a tough one. So how do we even know what's true then?
Right. He even brings up that classic question, what is truth?
That's a question for the ages.
It is. He's acknowledging that our individual perceptions, our beliefs, they shape how we see reality.
We all have our own lens.
Our own lens. And even highly intelligent, well-informed people can have completely opposing viewpoints.
I've definitely seen that happen.
So if truth is so subjective, how do we find common ground?
Yeah, it seems like that could lead to chaos.
It's a real challenge. Pike doesn't offer any easy answers.
Does he give us any guidance at all?
I think he's encouraging us to be open to different perspectives,
To listen to each other.
to engage in respectful dialogue, and to recognize that our own understanding of truth, it's always evolving.
It's a journey, not a destination.
Exactly. It's about humility, recognizing that we don't have all the answers.
Always more to learn.
Always more to learn, and being willing to learn from others, even those we disagree with.
That's important.
It is. And this whole idea of seeking truth, it reminds me of another aspect of Pike's work.
What's that?
His discussion of the ancient mystery traditions.
Oh yeah, those secret societies.
He argues that Masonry inherited this tradition of teaching through symbols and rituals, passing down this ancient wisdom.
It's like a secret lineage of knowledge.
A hidden thread connecting us to those ancient seekers.
I like that, a hidden thread.
Uh-huh.
And where does he trace these mysteries back to?
All the way to ancient Egypt,
Egypt.
to the rituals of Osiris and Isis,
Those Egyptian gods, right?
representing life, death, and resurrection.
Heavy stuff.
He suggests that these rituals, they encoded profound truths about the universe, about the human condition.
And they were designed to initiate participants into a higher level of understanding.
To lift the veil, so to speak.
Wow, to think those ancient practices could still have an impact on us today.
It's amazing, isn't it? And Pike connects those Egyptian mysteries to other traditions, too.
Like what?
The Greek mysteries of Eleusis, the Roman Mithraic cults, even the practices of the Druids.
So he's seeing a pattern here.
He's seeing this thread of mystical wisdom woven throughout history.
And he thinks Masonry is a continuation of that tradition.
He does, a modern expression of that ancient wisdom.
Okay, so that's a pretty spiritual view of Masonry. But what about those who see it as more secular?
As more of a social organization, yeah.
How does Pike address that?
Well, he acknowledges that Masonry encompasses a range of beliefs.
It's a big tent.
He knows that Masons come from different faiths, different backgrounds, and he respects that diversity.
So it's not about imposing any one dogma.
No. It's about providing a framework.
A set of tools.
A set of symbols, rituals that can be interpreted and understood in different ways.
By different people.
Exactly.
So he's saying it's a universal language of spirituality.
A way to connect with something greater than ourselves, regardless of our specific beliefs.
I like that. But he also makes it clear that understanding those symbols, it takes work.
It's not just handed to you.
It takes study, reflection.
To unlock that deeper meaning.
He's challenging us to be active seekers, not passive recipients.
He wants us to wrestle with those symbols, to grapple with them.
To really think about them.
And come to our own understanding.
He even compares Masonic ceremonies to, he says, the opening of a problem, requiring research and constituting philosophy the arch-expounder.
He does love his complex language.
He does. But I get it. He's saying Masonry isn't about blind faith.
It's about using our minds.
To explore, to question.
To engage in reasoned inquiry.
So we've got this tapestry of symbolism, philosophy, spirituality.
It's intricate.
But I'm starting to see how those threads connect.
It is a complex web.
And we're just beginning to unravel it.
We are. But I think one of the most important things to remember is Pike's belief in the power of symbols.
Those symbols are important.
He sees them as keys to unlocking deeper levels of meaning.
To open those hidden doors.
Bridges between the seen and the unseen.
Between the human and the divine.
And he challenges us to actively engage with those symbols, to find our own interpretations.
To embark on that journey of discovery.
He reminds us that the true treasures of Masonry, they're not just lying out in the open.
You have to work for it.
They're hidden beneath layers of symbolism.
Waiting to be unearthed.
By those who seek them with an open mind.
And a willing heart.
He emphasizes that symbols often outlast their explanations.
That's interesting.
Just like in Masonry, where ignorance and rashness can lead to the substitution of original meanings with new ones.
So it's about being careful, being respectful of that tradition.
Exactly.
So it's a call to look beyond the surface, to delve into the depths of Masonic tradition.
And to find that personal connection to its timeless wisdom.
That's a great way to put it. We've covered a lot of ground, explored so much of Pike's thinking.
From ancient mysteries to the Kabbalah.
From symbols to the individual's role in the world.
It's a lot to process.
It is.
But let's pause here for a moment. Let these concepts sink in.
Good idea. Take a breather.
Before we move on to the final part of our exploration.
Okay, we're back and ready to wrap up our deep dive into Albert Pike's morals and dogma.
It's been quite the journey.
It has. But after all this talk of symbols and rituals, I'm curious about Pike's own personal views on, well, God. He seems to embrace this idea of a hidden God, a force that's beyond our human understanding.
Yeah, he's definitely drawing on concepts that you find in a lot of mystical traditions.
Like what?
The idea that the ultimate reality, the source of creation, can't really be contained by names or forms.
That's too big for that.
It's too vast, too mysterious. It's something we can't fully grasp with our limited human minds.
He even warns against, trying to define God's attributes through abstract language. He says it leads to a, quote, wilderness of words. It's like trying to, pour the ocean into a teacup.
It just doesn't fit.
You can't capture it.
So what does he suggest we do instead?
Well, instead of getting bogged down in all these theological debates, Pike says we should focus on living virtuously.
On actually putting those principles into practice. Exactly. Embodying those eternal duties we talked about earlier. It's about action, not just abstract contemplation.
So a more practical approach to spirituality.
Right. He's emphasizing living in accordance with our highest ideals, striving for truth, justice, compassion. He sees that as the truest path to connecting with the divine.
And he reminds us that the divine is all around us if we just open our eyes to see it.
Oh, absolutely.
He says the greatest mysteries in the universe are those which are ever going on around us, so trite and common to us that we never note them nor reflect upon them.
It's like he's urging us to slow down, be present, and see the sacred in the everyday.
To appreciate those little things.
The wonders of nature, the laws of the cosmos, even the fact of our own existence. He sees all of that as evidence of a divine intelligence at work.
So instead of trying to define God, we can look for signs of God's presence in the world around us.
And Pike finds that presence everywhere.
Where? Give me some examples.
In a beautiful sunset, the intricate design of a snowflake, the interconnectedness of all living things. He encourages us to cultivate a sense of awe and wonder.
To recognize the mystery that's at the heart of it all.
Exactly. And this brings us to his discussion of the human soul.
Oh, yeah, what does he say about that?
He describes it as this eternal spark, a divine emanation that's temporarily housed within our physical bodies.
Like we're wearing these earthly suits.
But our true selves are something much more vast and timeless.
It's a powerful image.
He's tapping into this ancient idea of the soul's journey, which you find in many different cultures.
This idea that we come from a spiritual realm, spend time here on earth, and then return to that spiritual realm.
A cycle of birth, death, and rebirth.
And Pike sees this journey reflected in the Masonic rituals, right?
Oh, absolutely. The degrees symbolize different stages of spiritual development, the challenges we face as we strive for greater understanding.
It's a process of growth, of purification.
Of shedding our limitations and connecting with our true nature.
It's like that quote where he says, the soul with them was not a mere conception or abstraction, but a reality, including in itself life and thought. It was material, but not brute. Inert, inactive, lifeless, motionless, formless, lightless matter.
He's really challenging that materialistic worldview, the idea that we're nothing more than our physical bodies.
He's affirming the existence of a spiritual reality.
A realm beyond our senses, but no less real.
And he suggests we can access this realm through introspection, through contemplation.
And through the rituals and symbols of Masonry,
He's inviting us to embark on an inner journey.
to explore the depths of our own being, to discover that divine spark within.
Well, we've covered a lot of ground in this deep dive into morals and dogma. It's been dense at times, I'll admit,
Pretty light reading.
but also incredibly insightful, thought-provoking.
Pike was a deep thinker, that's for sure.
He was. So, as we wrap up, what's the final thought you want to leave our listeners with?
If, as Pike suggests, the universe is this harmonious whole reflecting the unity of God, how does that understanding impact our individual choices, our actions in the world?
That's a big question.
It is. It gets to the heart of what it means to live a life aligned with those Masonic principles.
A life of virtue, of purpose, of connection.
Exactly.
Well, we hope you've enjoyed this deep dive into Pike's work. It's a complex and challenging book, but as we've seen, it's also incredibly rich with wisdom and insight. We encourage you to keep exploring these ideas, to delve into the depths of Masonic tradition, and to find your own personal meaning within its timeless teachings. Thanks for joining us.